Welcome to the Shelves Exchange podcast, where we discuss all things women, whether it's dating, relationships, motherhood to careers, entrepreneurship, or securing your seat at the table. The Shelves Exchange gives influencers who may not be considered mainstream a platform to share their perspectives in a comfortable and safe space. Chamar Latanja is an author, speaker, and transformation coach, born and raised in Maryland. Chamar has been a #1 news seller on Amazon with her mini ebook titled The 7-Day Slay, then went on to publish her book, The 30-Day Slay, in which she chronicled key pieces of her life after her divorce to help other divorced women know what to expect, how to get help, and how to transform their lives after divorce. In December 2018, in an effort to help guide divorced women through a journaling process, she released the 30-Day Slay Journal. She was featured as one of the 10 winning women for Women by Choice Global. She was chosen as a featured writer for Brown Girls Who Write, and she has done interviews and guest appearances on several live streams focused on women's empowerment and growth. Chamar's platform is geared toward helping divorced women transform their lives from shame to empowerment, pain to purpose, and from fearful to fearless. So take us back to when you are a younger Chamar and take us through the journey of you being a younger Chamar till today.
Ooh, okay. We just gonna jump right up in it. Okay. Younger Chamar. Wow. As soon as you said take me back to me, your younger Chamar, my whole body was like, oh, child. So younger Chamar was really, you know what? Younger Chamar was very rebellious, very all over the place. I would go so far to say is the woman that I am now is really who I was then, but I just didn't understand how to use it and how to work it. And when I think about my youth, I was always very mature, right? And when you're young, sometimes that could be a gift and a curse. So in my maturity, I did the craziest things just to try and fit in or stand out. And it was all the wrong way. The younger Chamar was anointed at a young age. I gave my first sermon at 13. And I started teaching the adult Sunday school class around that age. But when your gifts come out that early, and all you want to do is be a teenager, you're going to do the exact opposite of what everyone wants you to do. Plus, I was a preacher's kid. So, you have my mom who was like super preacher, and her and my godmother, who also is a pastor now, they're breaking all these barriers for women preaching. And I'm just like, I'm coming along. The expectation is that, that's what you become. And it's like, no. So when I think back to those times, as rebellious as I was, as much as I fought all the anger that I had, it was just so much going on inside of me, and I didn't know how to maneuver it all and get it all out. So, as I get older, I begin to think, okay, I want an idealistic life, but what does that look like? The exact opposite of what I had. So now I want, a husband, a child, a white picket fence, and all that good stuff. And the one thing about me is I'm very stubborn. Now it's a good thing. I won't stop until I get what I want. I've had to learn to use that the right way, though. So I want this life because, I was already a teenager who struggled with alcohol from 15 on. I struggled with drugs. I struggled with ungodly soul ties, meaning I'm having sex with different men for, the wrong reasons. I'm struggling with my father not being there. I can't connect with my mom. So something has to go right. So I end up meeting a man, and to date, I couldn't have asked for a better father. But we met, got married, and had a child. Got pregnant all within 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. So and I end up getting my house. We were a military family, so I had my house with my front yard, my backyard, my beautiful hedges. Christmas was amazing because I have a whole house. But I am still struggling with alcohol. I was sober while I was pregnant, of course, and I stayed sober for a little while after she was born. But I can distinctly remember her being, I just struggled with it from the time she's a baby up until, until she's about 4 or 5. So, we're still having these struggles. I am now a wife, a mom, and I'm just 21. Literally, I just 21 years old. So at 21, you still don't know who you are. So now I'm tasked with figure out who I am while being a wife, a mom, and then I get into ministry. So now I have to be a minister, a wife, a mom, and still trying to find out who I am. So that whole journey from from those teenage years up until, I would say, until I was about 30, was all about me trying to figure out where I fit, who I am, and what I love and what my spirituality looks like. And it's all about trying to find that for myself and not trying to fit everyone else's roles. Unfortunately, I spent all of those years fitting every single role that was assigned to me. I had no business being a minister because spiritually I wasn't mature enough or ready, but I filled the role. And I would fill these roles just fine until I couldn't fill them anymore because, with women, when you're trying to be something that you're not, it's only but so long before the curtain tears. And the curtain kept tearing. And then I ended up divorced, and that was like the biggest tear you can have. But that ended up taking me into this amazing part of my life. So those years, I don't despise them because they made me who I am. But you could not have seen a more girl that was just lost and trying to find who she was and what role she played in this life.
Wow. So before we get into who you are currently, get real
Mm-hmm.
deep into that,
Yep.
I want to know what that process was like for you. How did you find your authentic self?
So finding your authentic self. Here's the thing. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that because you have to get to the point where you are ready to stand up for that. So after my divorce, I really sat there and I was just like, okay, I really had asked myself, who am I? Because now I'm not a wife anymore. I'm still a mom. I'm not a minister. I'm just sitting here as this woman, like, who am I? And I know I have all of these gifts and talents, but how does that equate? In that whole process was really going back to finding out what I love, going back to my childhood and remembering those things that would make me giddy with excitement. That was being an author. I've always loved being a writer, and I stopped doing it over the years because for many of us, life happens. So I got back into writing. And then as I got back into writing, I realized that I still have a heart to help people. And that's how I've always been. So then I find myself going into social work. The whole process, you take these, it really is about learning those obstacles and leaning into them and using them as a stepping stone. You do not get to find who you are by sailing smooth seas. You have to hit some bumps, you have to hit some curves, but you have to know how to lean into those and say, okay, what lesson am I learning from each one? What lesson am I learning from each mistake and each quote unquote failure? I really hate the word failure because I don't think that there's ever really a failure if you continue on. Right on down to, even the way I took care of myself as far as my health. I had gained so much weight. At one point, I was like 200 and, I was close to 300 pounds. Like I was just really unhealthy. And that had never been who I was. And that took looking in the mirror and looking at myself and saying, think later about your looks. How are you with your health? You used to run every morning. You used to eat right all the time. And at one point, did you stop doing that? And that brings out those tears. Like, why did I stop taking care of myself? What happened? Instead of running away from those tears, I leaned into them and I felt them deeply so I could understand, wow, I stopped taking care of myself because I stopped loving myself. So that whole process of finding who you are and living who you are authentically is leaning into every problem and understanding that it's always going to be a stepping stone. Now, how you maintain that is you learn the value of saying no and protecting yourself. Because unfortunately, especially for women, this world is always going to tell you who you are. And you have to get to the point where, once you're at that point, you now have to protect that and say, hold on now, no tea, no shade, no lemonade. but you're not about to tell me what I already know about myself, because I've been through too much to find myself. And walk away from that, understanding that if you lose some people, that's fine. If people are mad about it, let them folks be mad, and you live in your own truth.
You are absolutely correct about that one. I have never been happier until I started telling people no, or not
Mhm.
saying nothing at all, not agreeing to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, because
Right.
your inner peace is what's important at the end of the day.
Right. And and let me just say, sometimes, because I'm queen of clapback, sometimes it doesn't even require, anything. I will literally, child, I will literally just stare at you. Like, I know I said what I said. And if you don't like it, you want to keep arguing back, you can sit there and talk to yourself. I'm gonna drink my little coffee and go about my business. So sometimes it doesn't even, it just requires a point blank and period. And you keep it pushing and you continue to live your life.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about you now. So you're
Okay.
a speaker, an author, and a transformation coach. I feel like I'm fortunate enough to have experienced all those things coming from you. Every time I talk to you, you make me cry, but it's always happy tears, and I feel like it's always I feel like there's a breakthrough that happens every time that I speak to you, and it feels genuine. So let's talk about how your past experiences brought you to today.
So my past experience is bringing me to today. You know, I did not ever think I would be, I knew I would be an author. I had been wanting to write a book since I was a little girl. I'd always wanted to be an author. So this is a lifelong dream. Um, I did not see myself as a speaker, although I really should have. Like I said, I gave my first sermon at 13. Um, I certainly did not, what I did not see was being myself, being an entrepreneur and owning a coaching practice. That came about because of everything I had gone through. When I have had some great mentors. I've had some great help. My therapist, I was so blessed to find a woman. She's a woman of God, and everything she did was faith-based. But a lot of that I had to stumble upon and find, and trip and fall. And some of that stuff I just didn't need to fall into. And I began to talk to other women, and they would say, oh, well, what you went through is very normal. But to me, it didn't feel normal. I thought I had bipolar disorder. I thought that I was just too emotional. It didn't feel normal to me because no one had ever said that to me. So then I'm meeting other women in therapy, and they are so afraid to share their experiences. But the thing of it is, you have to share what you went through with the generation coming up, so they will know that 9 times out of 10, what you're going through is normal, and it is, and you can overcome it. So I just sat there one day and I was like, you know what? I have never been a woman of shame. I never really cared. So I am going to be as transparent as possible. I am going to share my experiences as publicly as I possibly can, and in the hopes that it helps some other women along the way and along their journey. So that's the basis of where I am right now. Everything that I do comes from that scripture. When the disciples were really excited about their growth, Jesus said to them, as you get strength, go back and strengthen your brother. Everything I do now is based in that. The stronger I get, you can best believe I'm going back and I'm going to help strengthen every other woman that needs that. And I'm helping them. I'm not just going to say, here's the tools, but here's the tools. Let me put my shoulder around you. You put your arm around my shoulder, and I'll help you get here, because I remember what it was like to be in your shoes and crying and stumbling and trying to find your way. And I'm telling you right now, some of that you don't have to stumble into if you have the right kind of guidance. So that's the basis of who I am right now. I think it would be really irresponsible of me to have all of this growth and have all of this new and not share it with every other woman who needs it.
You're absolutely right. But can we talk about therapy for a second, though?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you mentioned that you saw a faith-based therapist.
Yes.
Now, I'm an advocate for therapy. I've been seeing a therapist consistently for over a year now, and I know the benefits that therapy has had on me. But can you talk about what impact therapy has had on you?
Wow. So therapy, I growing up in the Black community, you know, we do not do therapy in the Black community, child. And I'm a preacher's kid. So it is always, you better take it to Jesus.
Right.
But I want to let y'all know right now, from me having gone to school for social work and as a life transformation coach, I fully believe I was led down that path by God to help others. So that's A, okay? You can have Jesus and a therapist. But I was going through my divorce, and one of my colleagues stopped me in the hallway. I don't know where, I'll never forget her for this. And she took both of my hands and she said, you know, everything's going to be okay. She knew I was going through a divorce, and everybody knew because I was crying all over the place, okay? And she took my hands and she said, and I really think you should see a therapist. And that's when I was like, you know what? I think you're right, because as strong as I am, I knew I could not make it through that on my own.
Mhm.
You know, I had a daughter that was watching me and she's struggling now. So I knew that I couldn't make it on my own. So I ended up going to therapy, and I threw all the taboos to the side. I threw all the, you know, whatever you want to think about therapy to the side. Well, actually, no, I didn't. I walked into the therapist's office and I said, okay, I need 6 months to get over this. I'm not crying on your little couch. I'm not doing any of this.
Not a
I
little couch.
right. I was not crying on your little couch. I don't need that box of tissue. You know, every therapist's office got that little box of tissues on the couch. I don't need that. I'm gonna come in here. We're gonna make the most out of this little hour, and I'm gonna go about my business. 6 months in the line, I'm gonna be good, okay? And her, ever the patient woman that she was, who I would later find out just filled with the Spirit of God, said, okay. You know, her calm voice. I sat down. I said, okay, so when we gonna get started? Well, what I thought was going to be a few sessions, I found myself putting money aside, budgeting homegirl into my budget. Like, I need to get to this office. And it took years and years of work and unpacking past trauma and, you know, adding those and figuring those things out to figure out where I was today. And I would not be this well-rounded woman. There is no way I would have learned to lean into the problems the way I have learned if it was not for therapy. Therapy taught me that your past helps make who you are, but you can unpack those things, you can face what your issues are, and you can move past them stronger. I learned that through therapy. And that's what made me want to become a life transformation coach. That's what made me sign up to take courses and go into work for social work, because of how much it helped me to unpack and release and then move forward in strength through therapy.
Mm. And it shows, I would say, it truly shows that you have done that work on yourself by the way you speak, by the way you write, by the way you tell your stories. It all begins to make sense. And I appreciate that, because that means you did the work for yourself. So you're not coaching without knowing what you're talking about. You actually did that work, and now you're able, like you said, to bring that work back to whoever you're working with your coaching clients.
Amen.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't want people to get confused and think that you can't help them if they were never married and then now they're divorced. It's for really any relationship, correct?
Right, right. It was so funny as I'm thinking about, you know, I kept thinking about how to, you know, introduce myself to people now, because initially that's what it was. And it has grown and evolved, as your business should, as you should. And I got my first male client last month, and he has never been married, but he has been through, you know, back to back tough relationships and, you know, stopped himself from living his dreams so much. And he said, I would like for you to help me get unstuck and really go forward. I have women who have never been married, but have been in these long-term relationships that have really just left them damaged. So, you know, I started with marriage because that's where I was coming out of. But as I've grown and evolved, when you need the help, you need the help. It could be a relationship, it could be many relationships, it could be anything that will make you feel like, wow, I'm stuck here and I need to start over. How do I do that effectively? So, yes, it has grown well beyond just the whole marriage and a relationship. People are now, especially nowadays, being tasked with rebuilding their lives after having never built one before. Or, I'm sorry, after having built one that they're not happy with. And they realize, this is not what I want to do anymore. This is not who I am. So how do I then begin to rebuild? And I've gotten, you know, some DMs and some messages and some consultations. And I'm like, okay, when you got to rebuild your life, you got to rebuild your life. There's no, protocol as to what that looks like. People need help. They need help. So that's how it has expanded.
And you're also a mother. So you mentioned you didn't even mention everything you do. See, I personally know you, so I know you holding out a little bit, but to say that you've done all that you've done and you're managing being a mother as well, how was that?
Yes, I'm a mom. I have a 17-year-old. She is going into her senior year of high school. I also am her cheerleading coach for her high school team. I've been the cheerleading coach for about 5 years, and we are to date the only team in the city of Hartford to go to a professional competition and win. We were the only Black team on the mat. So, that was, so it managing it really has become about time management. I say this to clients, and I'm very much of a Denise Huxtable free spirit. Like, please don't box me in. Let me just live. What are schedules? But as everything has grown, schedules have become my go-to. So managing all of that really is sitting down, creating the schedule for the week, sticking to that, being disciplined in it. And also, big key, because I am a life transformation coach, a cheerleading coach, which means I have my daughter and about any given moment 20 other children as well that look to me as a mentor and as a mom. And I'm working with the ministry of my church now. I keep the schedule tight and I manage a tight schedule, but I take a day. Usually it's a Sunday. And I go to church and I come home, I eat whatever I want to eat. I don't worry about calories, and I rest my mind. That's how you truly manage everything you have going on. You create your schedules, you stick to it, but you have to give yourself time to have downtime and to just breathe and do fun things for yourself, because that way you're not getting burnt out and you actually have more energy and more fortitude to go forth and, be all these different things to people.
Yep, absolutely right. I'm kind of failing at the time management part right now. But I'm trying, I'm getting there.
You know what? I don't do, so the way I do my days, today is the only day where I'm actually going by a time, only because I have a lot of interviews today and I don't know why. And that's the other thing, like, don't spread yourself too thin. I have not learned that yet. For some reason, I will schedule everything within 1 week and be walking around that week looking crazy. Like, tomorrow, don't nobody talk to me tomorrow because that's my day off. But what I've learned to do is, for the most part, when I do my daily schedules, I don't have them on time. Not right now, at least. Now it's like, as long as I get these things done before I put head to pillow, I'm fine. When school is in session and when I'm coaching, that's when it really is we have to keep it here because I have to be doing this. It's a working document. You do well some days you're just lucky to make it through alive,
That's right. And what about being so hard on yourself too? Are you hard on yourself if you don't complete something in a day, or I don't know, things get messed up?
Not as much anymore. So I'm going into my 3rd year in business by myself. When I first got started, I absolutely did, because, I'm the one making the money from my own business. So I have to hustle and grind. So I would be super upset with myself if I didn't get certain things done, or if I didn't feel like I was staying at the top of my game. What changed for me was I would push myself so hard to get things done because I didn't want that guilt. I remember there was 1 week where I got sick and I knew I was getting sick. And I was like, I don't have time for this. I have to record videos. I had a podcast at the time, which I no longer have. I was coaching. I was volunteering at my daughter's school. I have all these things that I need to get done. And I felt like I was getting sick. I kept pushing myself. And I ended up bedridden for 5 days on 5 different medications, no voice whatsoever. And the doctor was like, you cannot do anything else. You are bedridden. I'm giving you 5 different medications. You have no voice. You must rest. And I remember my principal at the time, she said, if you come up to the school, Chamar, I have security escort you out. So at that point, and then, I recovered and everything was still there waiting for me to handle it. So at this point in the game, 3 years in, I have learned this. I don't need to push myself extra hard to be relevant. As long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm keeping God first and I'm sticking to my plan, the relevancy is going to be there. Your vibe will attract your tribe. I'm not trying to win everybody over anyways. And everything is going to be there. Social media is not going anywhere. As long as my biggest thing is keeping my clients, because that's what keeps the bills paid. Sales are always going to be up and down. None of this stuff is going anywhere. I want people to understand, stop feeling so bad if you don't accomplish something on that day, because there's always tomorrow. And everything is going to be sitting right there waiting for you. And once you realize that, you realize I could take a day off and not miss anything, especially if your bills are paid. I could take a day off and not miss anything. I'm gonna go on Facebook and post some stuff for business, and everybody's still gonna be there talking. So once you realize that when you're ordained and purpose to do what you're supposed to do, the space is gonna be there for you. Take some time for yourself and stop feeling bad if you don't get something completed within that day. You got the next day, and then you got the day after that. So not so much these days.
Right. I totally get you.
Mm-hmm.
You did mention guilt. So I'm also a mother, and as you know, and I often experience mommy guilt. Now, I'm not sure if you experience that when your child is a teenager, but do you ever experience that? And if you do, how have you gotten over that?
So I experience it. Not again. That's something that we have begun to move past. But when I did experience it, I started coaching cheerleading when she was in the fourth or fifth grade. And at that time, when your child is that young and she has to share her mom with not only just a cheerleading team, but I was one of the first hires for this elementary school. So I was everyone's mom and coach and mentor. So when you're that young and you get to share your mom, I had to, the guilt in watching her just have to, I found a picture in my phone when I was cleaning up my phone the other night, and it was from years ago. And we would get to school at 7:30 in the morning, because that's when school would start. And then she would, go through the school day, and she wasn't on the cheerleading team yet because she was in middle school, but I had to coach. So school would end uh, at 3 o'clock, and then I would coach from about 3:30 to 6, and she would just be there. And I took a picture of her. She fell asleep at my desk in her full uniform. She was just sleeping. And that was a guilt that I'll never get over. To this day, that I look at that picture and I'm like, I can't believe I put my daughter through those long hours like that. So what I ended up doing was I would set aside a day I would call it Mommy Daughter Day. And typically it would be a Saturday. And we would go do things just for her and I. We would go get ice cream and have fun together, or we would go to the museum, because on the museum here in Connecticut, they had a kids section that was free. If we had the money, we would hightail it to New York for the day. That was Mommy Daughter Day. And so that guilt started to go away, because even she knew, okay, Mommy has to do this, but we're gonna have a day where it's just her and I. Now, as she grew, she got into high school and she was with me because she was a cheerleader. So she was with me. So we would end up still keeping our days, but now we know we both have to make more of an effort. And if I had to travel on those days, she just came with me. So making her, when you're a mom and you're building something, the best way to get over that mommy guilt is to make your children a part of the process. Because here's the thing, if you make it fun for them, they want to do it. And you're teaching them how to build and work in the process. The things that I see her doing now, she always says to me, it's because I watched my mom do it. And so, now the guilt isn't there as much anymore, because I know that we're always gonna do what we need to do to make sure we connect. And she's 17, so now she's got her little friends and whatnot, her little group FaceTime. I'm always gonna do what I need to do to make sure that we're connecting. So even with the Rona hitting, and I've been doing everything virtual and online, I'll realize, you know what, we haven't sat down and watched a movie together this week. Let's sit down and watch a movie, and that's our block of time. So it's all about, what you do to make sure your child knows that they're number one, and include them in the process.
Girl, my therapist just gave me that same advice. Now, if I knew you knew, I would have just called you and not paid her to tell me that.
Listen, yeah. And that's, again, something I have learned along the way.
That's great advice. Speaking of advice, what advice would you have for any women that's listening?
For any woman that's listening, the biggest thing I will say, there's two pieces of advice, because this is what I see with a lot of women that I talk to and work with. First and foremost, love yourself unapologetically. What I mean by that is, do not shrink back to make someone else comfortable. Do not love yourself. Love every part of yourself. Love who you are. Love how smart you are. Love how educated you are. Love how pretty you are. Love how well-rounded you are. Love all aspects of yourself without thinking that you're being conceited. I am meeting too many people who have these amazing gifts and talents, but don't want to pat themselves on the back because they don't want to seem conceited. I don't know where they got, well, actually, I know where they got that from. They got that from the world that is not comfortable with someone who loves themselves that much. So they shrink back. Don't do that. You be as bold, as loud, as energetic, as happy, as self-loving as you need to be, because God does not expect you to shrink back. I can't find one scripture where God says shrink back. And if somebody tells you, oh, what God says be humble, what that means is, you know, your confidence comes from being in Christ. Jesus was humble because he knew who he was, because he came from his Father. But you never saw Jesus talking down about himself. He was confident in his power and his abilities because he was connected to his Father. As long as you are like that, you're fine. That's what humble means, understanding that you have to be connected to a greater power than you, right? Secondly, just because somebody loves y'all does not mean you don't stop loving yourself, or does not mean you stop loving yourself.
Repeat that one.
Just because someone loves y'all does not mean you stop loving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do not meet these people that, you know, quote unquote, love you and see the best in you, and all of a sudden you give up everything because you want to keep that around. No. When you love yourself that much, that's just the icing on the cake. And you don't have to lose yourself. I was in this relationship this year, and it was great until it wasn't. And so he started to pull away and, you know, do some other things. And I said to him, let me just tell you something right now. I can love you from everything in my soul and being, but I will walk away because I love myself more, and I will not allow you to treat. I will walk away with my tears and my Kleenex and know that there will be a day where I will not cry anymore, but I have to love myself. And that day came. That day came. I said, I cannot allow you to treat me like this anymore. I do love you, but I love myself more, and I know what I deserve. And I walked away crying with my tissue in hand. Now I don't cry so much anymore. So those two things, love yourself loudly and unapologetically. And just because someone else loves you does not mean you stop loving yourself.
That is very important advice, especially for young women, you know, the 18-year-olds to like the 25s. That's the advice that I wish I would have known at that time. I know it now. So, you know, I tell people whenever I have the chance to, but I really wish that more of us knew that, because we could probably prevent some of the mistakes that we make, to be honest. And,
right.
You know, we learn from our mistakes sometimes, but at the same time, there's some mistakes that you never want to make.
Right. Exactly.
Well, tell everybody where we can find you. How can we support you? What pages you have out there? Let us know.
Okay, absolutely. You can, the home base is my website, www.chamar, CHAMAR, Latanja, LATANJA.com. And that's where you can find all of my products, all of my services. On IG, it's the same thing, Chamar Latanja. And please feel free to friend me on Facebook, Chamar Logan. I love meeting new people. Chamar will tell y'all. I I absolutely love meeting new people and conversing with new people. And that's how you can find me. As far as supporting me, when you go to my website, there is an email list. Go ahead, and that's free. Go ahead and sign up for that, because I love sending out blog posts and resources and tips in that email. And if you find it in your heart to say, oh, she's dope, let me see what else she got, just go through my website and look through. I'm literally always ready to jump in.
Thank you, Chamar.
Thank you for having me.
That was awesome.
I don't mean to make you cry, but I just want to say, I'm really proud of you. Like, I have watched you evolve so much, and this right here feels like you. It feels so authentically you, and it feels like something that you have just connected yourself with. And I'm very, 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 very proud of you. Very proud of you.
Thank you, Chamar. I appreciate that. You play too much.
I know.
I thought I was going to escape.
No, you just couldn't. It's amazing, to watch you continue to find yourself and to watch you continue, doing things and stepping out on faith and doing things. And I just see so much. This is all leading to the greatest thing that you'll ever accomplish, and I don't know what that is, but I can see these are all stepping stones to that really big thing that's really going to put you like, okay, this is it. This is me, and everyone's going to see that. So I'm really proud of you for not giving up and trying every new avenue. That's amazing.
Thank you. I received that.
You better, because you got there's a light around you, child.
Thank you. I'm gonna invite you to my yacht party when I
when I buy my yacht. I'll be like, yes, I knew she was gonna do it. I had called it.
Thank you for listening to the Shells Exchange podcast. You can check us out at theshellsexchange.com and the Shells Exchange on Instagram. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.